If you love baking cookies or cakes of any type, then chances are you've tried royal icing before. It's an awesome way to decorate, but sometimes it can be tough to use. In this video, I'm going to share some of my expert tips and tricks to help you use royal icing to decorate cookies like a professional. I hope you're ready. Let's get started. The first thing that I want to share with you is this practice sheet that I have. This is going to make it super easy for me to be able to show you exactly kind of where the lines go and all these tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you. If you click the link down below, then you'll be able to access this free piping sheet. But I've got some straight lines on here. I've got some circles, some wavy lines, all sorts of things. And I'm going to walk you through how to use this practice sheet to be able to pipe royal icing like a professional. The first thing that I want you to do though is grab your icing bag. This is a kind of a medium piping consistency, so it's gonna hold its shape, but it's not super, super thick. And I've got it in a tipless icing bag. Now, how you hold your bag does matter. So if you look at your icing bag, it's got this seam down one of the sides. And that seam you wanna make sure is against your palm, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and put that seam right against my palm. And so when I grab the bag, because I'm gonna be putting pressure from the top down, and that seam is gonna rest right on my palm here. So just make sure that you have your bag set up that way. And go ahead and practice, if you notice you're holding it up here. It is gonna pipe out slightly differently if you have your seam not facing the right way. So it's just gonna be a lot easier for you if you have the seam against your palm. So that's number one. You also wanna make sure that you don't have the bag overfilled. So sometimes if maybe you're flooding a lot of cookies and you're like, let's just fill the bag up all the way, and maybe you go a little too far and you've got icing everywhere. When you hold the bag, you wanna make sure that it can fit nicely into your hand and that you don't have, half of the icing up here and half below. You wanna be able to hold the bag at the top and be able to put pressure on and control what's going on with your bag. So don't overfill it. I wanna show you how to pipe a nice straight line. So the first thing I wanna show you is how to get some straight lines, and I'm gonna walk you through the whole thing. But first we have to cut off the end of our tipless icing bag. So let's see, we wanna get just a really nice straight cut. So go ahead and cut your icing bag. I always cut mine off to the side because I either have like cookies and stuff in the middle. I don't have that now, but I'm just so used to going off to the side to cut the end off, which is a really good tip, by the way. If you've got cookies and icing sitting there and you cut your icing bag, just make sure that it's off to the side so that that little piece of plastic doesn't get in your icing. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut straight across, and here, I'm gonna show you what this looks like. So I'm gonna do it off to the side here. So this is a pretty decent line. It's about the width of spaghetti, and that's what we're looking for. And I'm probably gonna get the question, do I need a piping tip? No, you do not need a piping tip for this, especially if you're practicing. Don't even worry about piping tips or anything. This is gonna be just such an easy way for you to practice and pipe royal icing just with the tipless icing bag itself. Okay, so this is looking really good. And if you notice, what I did is I kind of fluffed the end of the bag, because the tipless icing bag, when you first squeeze it out, it might look a little flat, and I want to get it to as much of a circle as possible, so I kind of fluff the end a little bit. I'm going to show you how to get a really nice straight line. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure your seam is against your palm. I usually like to brace my arm a little bit, or however you're comfortable, but you want to get that tip down on. Now I'm doing it on the paper. That's totally fine. When you have this practice sheet, you can print it out. You can do it right on the paper. If you don't have the practice sheet, that's okay too. You can go ahead and practice right on your work surface if you want to, okay? So in fact, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do a line here. So I'm gonna just squeeze a little bit of icing out. I'm gonna touch it down to my surface, and then I'm gonna squeeze as I come up and go across. And really what's happening is the line is kind of just laying down on its own. And then I take the pressure off, and then I come down and touch the surface again. Okay, so that's gonna help me get a nice straight line. I'm gonna bring my practice sheet back here. So let's try it on here. So I'm gonna touch down, and I'm really lifting up pretty high because I want that line to just lay down. I don't wanna push it. It's almost like you're kind of leading the line along. Let me show you what happens if you pipe and you're pushing the icing along. It's a lot harder to get an even line. And usually if this isn't something that you've practiced a lot before, it's gonna look a lot like this. It's so much harder to get a straight line. and even lines when you're pushing the icing along. So be sure that you just go ahead and touch it down. You lift as you're putting pressure on the top of the bag and let the icing, the line of icing, do a little bit of work for you. I'm gonna show you what to do with the rest of this practice sheet because we're gonna practice some circles, we're gonna practice some other piping skills. I'm gonna show that to you. But before I do, let me thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want to amaze your family and friends with the most awesome looking cookies they've ever seen, you're in the right place. This is a channel where deliciousness meets joy, and we're all about having fun with cookies and icing here. We'll show you how to make cookies that look impressive but are also easy to make. So please do me a favor and like this video. Be sure to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell and share this channel with any of your friends who love to bake or who are into cookies as much as you. It really does help out. So thank you so much again. I'm gonna get back to the video and show you some more piping techniques. All right, so I wiped off my area a little bit so that I could focus right here on all of these awesome lines that we have on this practice sheet. I wanna show you these things in the middle here. This is a way to practice the pressure, kind of making sure that you get accurate pressure when you're piping. So I want you to hold the bag straight up and down and then go ahead and squeeze some icing right here in the center and go only as far as the outside of that circle, okay? And same with this one. Keep going. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna kind of just wiggle it a little bit in the middle and it will get a little bit more round. As you're just moving it a little bit in the middle, it's going to turn into a nice even circle on the edges. So if you don't do that, sometimes it can become more of an oval. If you're just pushing to pipe out, it can get kind of crazy and it doesn't end up being the shape that you want. So it's really good practice. Just make sure you're holding your bag up and down for that. All right, what about squares? Squares with sharp edges, squares with rounded edges. So the same technique applies as to what we learned up here at the top with those straight lines, and you're gonna now move that to a square. So I'm gonna touch down here and I'm lifting up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and lay my line down there. And then same, I'm gonna do one on the bottom, one on the top. And guess what? If it's not exact and it doesn't match up exactly with your practice sheet, guess what? It's okay. It's called a practice for a reason. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's move over to the circle. So how can we apply exactly what we learned here with lines to the circle? So we're gonna move the icing bag to guide where that line falls. Watch this. So I'm holding it pretty high. I've got a little bit of pressure on still, so some of the icing is coming out of the bag. And now I'm gonna take the pressure off because I've got enough piped out where I can just lay it down and it'll be fine. In fact, I've got a little overlap. All right, there we go. Now try it with the bigger circle. Now the trick here, start slow, okay? Start slow, and then as you do it multiple times, try and speed up a little bit. You're gonna get a little bit more of an accurate line if you can gain some momentum, but it is gonna take some practice. So print out a bunch of these sheets and you can just keep going and keep going. All right, now we're gonna do a wavy line. So the same technique applies. You're gonna do this and then you're gonna kind of slow down. You're gonna go ahead and go the other direction. Same, slow down there. I let off the pressure a little bit. Now I'm gonna put the pressure on and pipe out a little more icing. And sometimes you're gonna kind of jiggle the line a little bit to help it connect to the paper at the right spot. There we go. All right, now let's try a zigzag line. This is actually gonna be a sequence of regular straight lines. We're just gonna stop and touch down at each point. Right here, I'm gonna stop and touch down. You can even lift all the way up if you want, or you can just touch down and keep going. But the point here is literally to get a point, you're gonna wanna touch down. If I don't, it starts to turn into a rounded line. And if that's what you want, then go for it. But for the purposes of learning this part, touch that tip down to the paper. All right, then you can go ahead and keep practicing on all the other lines that are there. You can go up and down, side to side. Now, I will tell you this, if you're left-handed, then do what is comfortable for you. You can go from right to left, or, I would suggest that. So really what you wanna do is whenever you have icing touch down, you're gonna be wanting to pull more towards you. So whatever direction that is, like if I have, that's why with the square, I was pulling lines towards me or from left to right. The only time that you'll end up kind of going away from you is if you're doing a circle or something. It really is gonna be easier to always be trying to bring the icing towards you. One last thing I have to share with you is that consistency really does matter when you are piping lines and practicing and trying to get good. So your regular piping consistency should be about a medium thickness. It shouldn't be super thick, but you don't want it like a flood either. And again, the biggest thing that you want to remember is that you're going to want to pull the icing instead of push it. Now, Lolly, what about if you're flooding? Can I push the icing if you're flooding? Yes, if you're flooding, then pushing the icing is gonna be okay because you're not trying to get those exact straight lines. But a general rule is just make sure that when you're piping lines, you wanna be pulling the icing along instead of pushing it. If you want to really improve your royal icing technique and get really good at those straight lines fast, look no further. I have created this simple, easy to use, one-page guide to help you practice and improve and master your royal icing piping technique fast. All you have to do is click the link in the description below this video, enter your details, and I will send it directly to you. So go grab your free copy of this piping practice sheet right now.